Hey, Nick Hancock here, president of Midwest Lightning Rods in Decatur, Illinois. I wanted to come with a instructional video for my installers, but I wanted to share it with everyone else because maybe if you have installers or are an installer in the lightning protection industry, this could come in handy for you. It is how to install a 1-inch PVC through roof, through metal decking, roof insulation, and EPDM roof, and how to run the copper conductor cable from the rooftop with a lightning protection rooftop fitting on top and CAD weld or exothermic weld to the structural steel or I-beam on the underside of the roof when using the structural steel as means of grounding of the lightning protection system. So stay tuned. I want to start off with just a basics of the tool bag or bucket that we will have and what it contains, and then as we go through, you'll see what they're used for. First, you'll have a canvas bag. Inside there will be your CAD weld material, your CAD weld shots, your igniter, whether it be a manual igniter or electric igniter. You will also have the CAD weld mold you're using along with the handles. You'll have the brushes. You'll have two different types, one that's a little bit coarser, one that's a little bit finer. You'll have a propane torch. You'll have a welding blanket. You'll have a fire extinguisher can. You will have fire block foam. You will have 3 drill bits with a drill bit extension. You'll have some self-tappers with a self-tapper drill bit. You'll have a grinder as well as a impact drill. And you will have C-clamps. We have 3 different variations. You probably know what to use before you get there, but we have a Sharpie because it's going to come in handy, and metal bucket that we use, as well as a canvas tool bag, and we'll utilize both. And most importantly, you will have your face shield, your leather gloves, and your hard hat, which your hard hat won't be in the bag, it'll be on your head. Let me take the time right now to say you have to make sure that you wear your leather gloves as well as your face shield and your hard hat at all times while doing any CAD welding. The last thing you want when you're grinding a little bit of steel is to get particles in your eye or burn yourself. And if you would happen to touch or grab any of the components revolving around CAD welding with your bare hands, you will remember it for a long time and you won't be working. So keep that in mind, be safe, and be prepared. Pack what you need to go to each spot into a bag and go. So that's it on the tool bag and the safety. So we buy our lightning protection equipment from a few different vendors. What we do is when we do our shop drawings and submittals, we get approved for the through roof cap that we will be using. So the means of getting through the roof is assumed to be a piece of 1-inch PVC, which is correct. However, no one really gave any thought to how that 1-inch PVC just floats in the roof while we do our thing. So what we do at MLR, and you guys can do it too, we get either between 1 and 2 inch stainless steel L brackets. They're just cheap L brackets. And we use M1 structural adhesive, which is the same adhesive we use to adhere our lightning protection components to any substrate that we're adhering to. ChemLink product, M1 structural adhesive, because it's phenomenal. Either way, what we do is we take this our 1-inch PVC, and we cut it down to 2-foot sticks. And so what we do is we line up these 24-inch sticks, and like on this job, I think we got 15, 16 times we got to poke through a roof. We'll take and put M1 structural adhesive on all of the sticks, just for about a glob of it for about an inch, go through and make sure we obviously plumb it so they're straight, but we stick an L bracket to each one of these. Now, here in 2 days, it will be stuck. It ain't coming off unless you really want it to. That's the great thing about this stuff. Obviously, you're going to place yourself so you're drilling through where you're near the steel that you're going to connect to, just because it only makes sense. And you also want to make sure you are in from the edge of the roof far enough that if there's a parapet wall or anything like that, you don't hit it. So we usually always go 36 inches away from the exterior wall, and then find the closest I-beam, that makes sense and will be easy for you to reach, and go right next to it. Poke straight up in the air. How this happens is we will take, and one of the drill bits, which I would always recommend, there's 2 of them that I like, but the third one is in there that I've never used, the pointy one, or the one that looks like a cone. I've never used it. I think it still has a little rubber tip on it. It looks like it's pretty cool, and the reviews are great. But my method is poke through the metal roof deck with the hole saw. Once you get through the metal, or switch over to the one pointed long tip right here. You'll see it's like a bore drill bit. I can't even think of the name of it, but here it is. And what we'll do is you put that on the extension, and it'll eat right through that roof insulation. And as soon as it hits that rubber roof, it will eat a hole perfectly right through it. And that's the idea. This whole installation is a one-man job. That's why the instructions are given as such. So after we get poked all the way through, what we'll do is you'll take that piece of PVC, that PVC sleeve, and you'll slide it up through the installation. It's going to be a snug fit because the hole isn't excessive. So you're going to get right up through there. It's going to pretty much hold itself in place pretty well. But when that L bracket bumps into that underside of the roof deck, you're going to take a self-tapper, zip it in. It's going to hold it in place. That's when you'll take a 5-foot piece of copper cable. We're using 32S from Independent Protection Company. They're class 1 copper wire. We take 5 foot of it. You stick it up through there. Once you get over a foot or so through the top of the PVC, it's going to start draping over, and really that's all you need. Get shoved through, and we zip a self-tapper in there. It's going to just sit. It's going to fit pretty snug anyway, because the hole we're drilling is the same size as the OD of the 1-inch. So then we'll take, and once you start feeding this cable up, after it, even though you're not on the roof level, once it starts coming out, it will drape over and it will support itself. As long as you have more up than you do down, it's going to fall over or coil up or something, and you're fine. What happens then is you take your CAD weld, your mold template, which essentially just take your CAD weld mold, put it on a piece of cardboard, take a Sharpie and cut it out. Section this big. So you're talking a 4x4 section is going to be grinded down to the bare steel. You want to go as low as you can, because remember that CAD weld mold has to go on there and the top's going to have to open. So what you do is you go down or go wherever you need to locate it, just keeping in mind what needs to happen there. And you'll draw a line with your Sharpie. You get the grinder out, grind that down. If you need to take the wire brush to hit any dust off of there that the grinder made, then do so, all with your goggle or with your safety mask on and your gloves on. And then what we'll do is you'll take the CAD weld mold out, and the handles will be on it already, of course. And what you'll have to do is, since we're using new cable, take the end of that cable that's sticking through, heat it up, put the torch on it just enough to any grease, any oil from your hands, anything from just packaging and storage and transport, anything that could be on it. We want to get it off. Same with the CAD weld mold. Open that thing up, put the torch on it. We're not trying to get it red hot. We're just trying to, you'll even see when like the oil that's on it starts like to dissipate, it will lighten in color a little bit, but you'll only have to do this once throughout the day unless you take a long lunch break. But so what we'll do is you'll take the CAD weld mold and you will take a C-clamp and you will put the mold to line up to the spot where the connection will be where it's been grinded. You'll take your C-clamp, whichever one fits the best that you like the best, and you'll snug up the C-clamp to hold that CAD weld mold in place so you can take your hands off of it. Don't crank it yet. Then we're going to take the end of that cable and we're going to feed it in the slot that is for the cable to go into. And you'll feel it when it hits the spot it's supposed to. And when it does, you can leave it. It's all good. It's perfect. You want to make sure the cable will stay there. So what you're going to do is, while that cable's in there all the way, now rather than just have it snug, you're going to crank that C-clamp a little bit. You're not trying to crush anything. You just want to make sure it's holding everything in place. You'll notice in your tool bag, something I didn't mention that you'll find in a bag because I don't think you need it, but it's there, is duct seal. And what that is if you were coming up from the ground and connecting to the steel, then you would have the chance of that material when it gets hot, if the seal isn't proper, leaking out the bottom. So you would take duct seal where the cable enters the mold and you would essentially roll it into like a little snake. I take a ball, rub it, roll it into like a little, snake or whatever, and press it around that, and it keeps the material in, and you can even reuse duct seal. But if you feel like you need it, you can definitely put it around where it goes in, but it should be just perfect, just like it is. So at this point in time, now that everything's set in place, what you're going to want to do is you're going to take your, if you're doing the electric shots, then you just put the shot cup in. If you're doing the manual, then you'll take your disc and put it in. Then you'll take your canister and you'll dump the powder in, and make sure when you get to the end of the powder, you tap it on the CAD weld, because what's on the bottom of that container, which will essentially end up being on the top, is the igniter. So you want it as is. We're not trying to shake it up and mix it or nothing like that. Dump it as is. And at that point in time, again, you will, if you're doing it manually, then you will take your igniter, you'll stick it, you can stick it through the lid hole. I always barely lift the lid up so I can get the igniter on it. Because keep in mind, it's going to flame. It's not going to combust. It's not going to blow up. So you just hit your igniter a few times, and if you're doing it electrically, then that's where you hook your leads up and you hit the trigger and you let it activate, and you will see the flame start, and then the flame will dissipate within a couple seconds. At that point in time, what you do, because you have your gloves on, is you pop open that lid. The lid will allow some air to hit it, because at this point in time, it's red hot. It's hot, red hot like lava. So you want it to cool down, not long. I mean, lift the lid, wait a few seconds, 10 seconds maybe. Take your C-clamp off. At that point, your mold isn't going to go anywhere because your C-clamp is clamped around the mold that's connected. So you can take your C-clamp off, which will be warm, throw it in the metal bucket, take your cape, take your handle, open them. It will separate the CAD weld mold, and you will be left with what is a beautiful connection to the steel. At this point in time, you want to take a hammer, which also I didn't mention being in the tool bag, but that was an accident. However, let it be a reminder that we're not bringing a hammer to see how hard we can test it. It's a tap test. Tap, 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 tap. If it has failed or if it is questionable at all, when you're watching and you do it, you'll see it. And if it is, pop it off, grind it down, and redo. Um, if you follow instructions properly, there'll be no redos. All failed CAD welds are due to proper preparation or proper cleaning or whatever. So at this point, what we do is when you have the CAD weld mold, it's there, you look at it, you can see some residue from it. You grab the softer bristle brush, go ahead and hit it off. You'll see some dust fly, and that's what you want to see. You just get that dust off just enough. You can blow it off, you can do whatever, and put it in your metal bucket. It's ready to go to the next hole. You tap test it, it's good. Now is when around the area that you just CAD welded to the steel, obviously our connection isn't 4 inches by 4 inches. Take some rust inhibitor spray and put a coat right to cover up the steel that you grinded, and you can even cover up your connection. It doesn't matter. And this is literally just to stop rust from forming because of what we did. Also, now is when, and this is also at your discretion, there is that great stuff, fire blocking foam is in the tool bag as well. Depending on where you're at, the time of year it is, what the weather's like, and it's really at your discretion. That fire block foam spray, you have to use it very sparingly if you decide to use it. But what I've done is from the underside, after gathering up my tools and prior to leaving that location, I'll take and just very lightly squeeze a little bit of that fire stop foam into the bottom side of that PVC, and it expands and goes around that cable to keep any kind of weather out, just assuming you're not going to be able to get to cap it that same day or before any weather hits or however the schedule works out. What you need to keep in mind is last thing you want to do is fill that PVC up, because there's a good chance, and you can pop it loose, but there's a good chance you'll need to, because what happens is where that cable's coming out on the roof, once the roofers come and put the boot on that PVC, we're going to cut off that PVC 1 inch above the top of their boot, just enough to put that cap on. So none of our PVC is going to actually be exposed. But what happens is we need about 2 or 3 inches of that cable sticking out on the top side that we'll leave after we cut the tail, that we'll have to use to put in the bottom of the cap fitting with set screws. So what that means is once you get it all connected, you still have to shove back down a little bit of that cable at least. So if you don't go overboard with that fire stop and you just give it a little bit, just a little, then what you'll get is the ability to push and pop it loose fairly easily. And if you don't and you get a little bit too much, you can still force it in there. It's just better to make it easier. But what you'll need to do is make sure that you let whoever's in charge know that there are penetrations in that roof, because you will need to get a roofer there to get the boot on so you can finish the through roof system correctly. And a lot of times if a roofer's there, that makes roof access easier for us because they have to get it. So keep that in mind. But all right, well, that's what I got on it. If you have any lightning protection questions at all, or any constructive criticism, I don't really need your criticism about this video, but this is just what we've done. I'm not making it up. We've done it for a long time. We'll probably do it for a lot more. But Midwest Lightning Rods, Lightning Strikes, weprotect.com. And get a hold of us for any of your lightning protection needs or questions. We're here to help, here to protect, and most importantly, we're here to protect your peace of mind. So if you need to make sure that your home is safe from the storm and you're in the Midwestern United States, get a hold of us. Great. Thank you.